Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Anna, aka Brookwillow, and today I gathered my top 5 favorite knit pullovers to share with you. I love knit pullovers because they are just so easy to wear. You don't have to put much thought into it. In the winter time, you can just throw it on with a pair of jeans or a patterned skirt or some flowy pants and you have your outfit right there. But I also really like knitting them as well, to the point where the only sweaters I've actually knit are pullovers. I'm in the progress of making some cardigans right now, but yeah, so I had a lot to choose from, and I have been knitting them for the past 3 or 4 years now, and I think I've knit up to around 10, so it was hard to choose my top 5, but I wanted to make sure that I had a good mix of different types of colorworks and textures, and even a basic one as well to share with you. Other criteria that I have for my top 5 is how well they've held up over the years. I have some in here that I have knit like 3 or 4 years ago, and how they feel against my skin via the yarn that I use to make it, and how well they fit my body and style as well. I'm going to start out with the one all the way to the side here, and this is the Flower Power Pullover by Degen Knitwear. Degen is known for having a very funky style, and I think this one was tame enough for me, but still really makes a big statement, and that's definitely because of these colorwork motifs on the front and the sides and the back of the garment. This is knit using the intarsia technique, but I knit mine a little bit differently than what was called for in the pattern. In the pattern, they want you to use different bobbins that kind of hang off throughout the sweater, and I didn't want to manage that much yarn, so mine is kind of a blend of intarsia and stranded colorwork. This is knit flat from the bottom up, so you start with the main body and then you knit all the way up and then you move on to the sleeves. And I think the sides are seamed as well. This sweater pattern has a sizing range from a bust circumference of 36 inches up to 60 inches. I knit the XL, which is a 52 finished bust circumference size, which gives me plenty of positive ease, which is something that I personally really like in my sweaters. I don't love tight-fitting knitwear. Actually, what I'm wearing here is probably the most tight-fitting garment that I have, but this just feels like wearing a big cozy sweatshirt, and I love it for that. The yarn I used for this garment is Biches Le Petit Lambswool, and it was my first time working with that yarn, and it is very lovely to knit with. It's a very sticky yarn, so it makes for a great colorwork knit. I can't remember, I think the colors that I used in this was dark reddish brown and very light green or something along those lines. I could certainly go back and check if you want to know the exact color, but I really like the unusual pairing of the two. So this is like a very sea foamy green against this reddish brown. It's not something I normally would probably pair together, but I think I just happened to see them next to each other online and I'm like, wow, those two look really cool together. I love this sweater so much. It's definitely one of my most worn pieces, even for being such a statement pattern to it. But yeah, I really like these floral motifs. They give like a very Scandi vibe, in my opinion, to the sweater, and I just think it's a really cool detail. The neckline is a very nice kind of like a mock neck style, and I realized I really prefer this when it comes to a turtleneck, because sometimes if there's too much around my neck, it freaks me out a little bit, but this is just the right amount to kind of fill up my neck area without it being way too constricting. The next sweater on the rack here is the Marseille Sweater by Petite Knit. And this particular sweater brings back a lot of wonderful memories of camping in the fall. I do an annual camping trip every single year at the end of September, and this is the sweater that I grab for every time because it just gives the perfect fall sitting around the campfire vibes, and I am here for that. This is a very popular design by Petite Knit, and for good reason. I think the pattern was written very well. I even knit this a second time. I made my aunt a version of it as well. And the fit overall is awesome. I did have to go back and fix this. When I initially knit this sweater, I made the sleeves way too long, and it didn't look good having them rolled up because it's quite a large cuff, so it's like oversized on my hand. And now that I've finished the sleeves, this is easily one of my top 5. Again, it's another oversized knit pattern. The finished bust circumference on the sweater ranges from 43¼ up to 69 inches. I opted for size 5, which I think was 53¼ inches of finished bust circumference. So again, like over 10 inches of positive ease is my sweet spot, and that's definitely what I achieve with this sweater. I use Sandnes Garn Double Sunday, I think. The colors I used for this one is Into the Woods and That Orange Feeling. I think the only thing, and this is just a very small criticism of myself, is the colors that I chose. I really like it, and I see olive green with red stripes. However, somebody that I work with always says that I look like Freddy Krueger when I wear this, which I can see, but maybe he sees more brown than olive. But it sometimes makes me worried that I'm walking around with a sweater and people think that it's a Freddy Krueger sweater, because that's definitely not the vibe that I'm going for with this, but whatever. I still do really think it's cool. And again, like somewhat unique colors paired together. This is one of the older ones that I knit. I knit this one 3 years ago, and it still remains to be one of my top 5 sweaters. And I think it'll continue to be for a very long time. The third sweater on my list is the Magnolia Bloom by Camilla Vad. And this is actually only the second sweater I ever knit for myself, which is probably pretty ambitious given that it's lace work for like half of the whole sweater. This whole sweater is worked seamlessly in the round top down, so it's very easy breezy to knit. And it's knit in quite a loose gauge as well. The gauge for this sweater is 12 stitches by 17 rows. So yes, it's very much a loose gauge, and I knit it on a US size 10, which is probably the largest needle I've ever used when knitting a sweater. So yeah, as you can imagine, this one really flies by. I can definitely see through a lot of the fabric, even besides the lacy part. So I definitely always have to wear some type of layering piece underneath, and that might be really the only con that I have for this sweater. It'd be nice to sometimes just throw something on and not have to worry about anything underneath, but it's really not that big of a con because boy, do I love this sweater. I think it's very classy, and this always ends up being the sweater that I wear during the holidays because I just feel like it looks just very nice and classic on. And again, it's another timeless knit that I don't think will really ever go out of style, so I imagine myself wearing this one for years to come. The yarn I used is Knitting for Olive Merino, and I paired it with the Mohair as well. I can't remember what color it was that I used, but it's just like a creamy white, as you can see here. And I really like the way that the fabric feels together. It's very luxurious. I do well with Mohair, so it doesn't make me itch at all, which I feel very fortunate for, because it just creates such a beautiful halo on the sweater. One thing you can maybe see is the neckline has stretched out quite a bit. It barely stays on the hanger. I do kind of like the slightly boat neck look. However, I don't think that's what's intended for this sweater. It makes the shape a little weird. So I think I am going to have to go through and maybe run a little bit of elastic in the neckline just to tighten it up a little bit more. Fourth on the list could possibly be my favorite sweater I ever knit if I fixed the sizing on it, which I'll get into in a little bit. But this is the Tesselated Pullover by Andrea Mowry, and another very popular design. This was her Rhinebeck sweater for last year, so 2023, and she has since made a whole family of tessellated designs, one of which I am actually currently working on. I'm making the cardigan version of this, but I do absolutely love this pullover. I am in love with this deep foresty green, and I actually used some hand spun in this as well. But let's talk about the pattern first. So it's knit bottom up, and then you work on the sleeves afterwards. And this one, if you know, or you know someone who's knit it, you probably know that it takes a very long time to knit, and that's because it's knit using mosaic color work, which really shrinks up the fabric and just takes a lot longer to knit. With that being said, it creates some beautiful fabric. I'm so in love with this stitch pattern. And it's really simple and easy to memorize. You would be able to memorize after the first round of stitches. This sweater has a finished bust circumference of 33.75 to 69.25, I believe. Or it was either 33.25 to 69.75. One of those two. And I knit a size 5 again. It is recommended to have like 4 to 10 inches of positive ease for this sweater. So I went more to the 10-inch side again, but then my gauge was too small, so it's probably more like 8 inches of positive ease. So I mentioned that the sizing could be a little bit better, and that was on me. I could have done a little bit more research. First of all, I think I would have possibly been okay with going up a size. I am a very tight knitter, so with that alone I think I could have gone up a size, but the main issue I have is how cropped it is. It's so cropped that it still sits above my high-waisted jeans, so I always have to wear a tank top underneath, and I don't really like for the tank top to show underneath, but it does. So if I were to do this again, I would definitely add probably at least 2 inches to the body. So if you're a bit taller, I would recommend that if you want yours to cover over your jeans. And for reference, I'm 5'8", and that's what I would recommend, is at least 2 more inches on it. But other than that, I think it's really nice. It is so comfy to wear. It's super soft against the skin. I wouldn't even really need to wear anything underneath if it was covering up my body all the way. But the yarn that I used is Purl Soho's Good Wool, and the color that I used, I think it's dark spruce. And then for the fuzzy yarn that it calls for, I used Purl Soho's Brume in Tawny Dune, which I think may have since been discontinued. I saw that they were kind of selling them all off last year. I'm not sure if that's still around, but It's a Surrey alpaca, I believe, and I think it was my first time actually knitting with Surrey alpaca, and I really like the way that it feels. And then the color changing yarn that's called for, I used my own hand spun yarn. It was Malabrigo's Nube in the colorway Corteza. By the way, all these yarns are straight from memory, so I'm really proud of myself for somehow remembering the names and the colors after all these years, because I don't really have a great memory. But yes, love the Tesselated Pullover. And like I said, I'm knitting the cardigan as well, and I'm remembering what I said about this. I'm going to add at least an inch to the body. However, I wouldn't mind if the cardigan was more cropped, because I would always wear something underneath it anyways, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, I really recommend this sweater a lot. The final sweater on my top 5 is the Versal Sweater by Ailbíona McLochlainn. I knit this year actually. It was like January or February that I made this, and I was in need of just a plain basic pullover. I don't really have any basic stockinette stitch ones, and I wanted one with a turtleneck as well in a fresh green because I was in the mood for springtime. And so after looking at Ravelry, I decided to knit this one by her. I had really been wanting to knit an Ailbíona McLochlainn sweater for a while, and this one did not disappoint at all. This was also knit top down, and that was really refreshing because I feel like I had been knitting a ton of sweaters that were knit bottom up flat, and I just wanted something really easy and I could just mindlessly work on, and that was definitely this sweater. But it still has really cool details to it. So I really like this saddle shoulder on the side. I don't know if you could see it very well here, but I think it just flows really nicely into the arms and the body. And she also gives a lot of different ways to modify the pattern, whether that be without the turtleneck and just do a crew neck. She does all different lengths and different fits in the body as well. So you could really make quite a few different styles of sweaters out of the same pattern, which I think is really cool. And I do plan to make a crew neck version of it because I mentioned earlier I don't love having high turtlenecks, I found, and that was after knitting this sweater. I think it looks really cool, but for all day wear, it kind of gets a little itchy and I get almost a little too hot. The itchiness could be because I used a very rustic wool. The yarn that I used for it was Shetland Heather Aran by Jamieson of Shetland in the colorway Pippin. The finish bust circumference available for this pattern is 32 inches to 64 inches. And she gives all different types of recommendations for ease on how you want your sweater to fit and what size you should make. I made a size 5 again, which gives me about 6 inches of positive ease. So on the lower end of ease for me, but I'm really happy with it. I think the length is perfect. It's like a long crop. So it's not too long where it's going over my hips, but it covers my kind of waistline on my jeans. So I don't really have to wear anything under it if I don't want to. However, I probably would because it is an itchier sweater. So taking a look at the rack here and kind of planning out the future and what I want to knit, I noticed that I mostly have a lot of colors in dark, moody colors, and that's kind of the case for the rest of the pullovers that I have as well. I think when I go to pick a project, automatically my brain is like, okay, what color do you want it to be? And I always kind of forget about neutrals, and assessing my closet, I realized I actually really do need a lot more neutrals. And so I am planning to make maybe more neutral and natural colored sweaters. I would love to spin up sweater quantities of yarn from different sheep breeds and just use their natural colors in sweaters. I think that would be really beautiful. But something else that I really want to incorporate is more cable knitting. You'll see that I don't have any cable knit sweaters here. So I really envision just a very classic creamy cable knit sweater that I think would go with so many things in my wardrobe. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe got some inspiration on some pullovers that maybe you want to knit in the future. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite pullovers are, because I'm always looking to knit more. If you like this style of video, please let me know as well, or just give it a thumbs up. I think it would be kind of fun to do a top 5 of different categories like knit beanies or sewn dresses, etc. And yeah, I think it's fun to kind of look back and appreciate sweaters of my past. In the meantime, I hope you are having a lovely September, and we will chat next time. Bye!